Today, I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite tournament or GPP plays for the Week 3 NFL Draftkings main slate. And like I've done with these videos so far this year, I'm going to kick it off by breaking down a couple of my favorite game stacks, and then we'll dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks. With that being said, let's get right into this. And we're going to dive head first into what's expected to be the most popular game to target this week between the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, if you watch my tournament videos for weeks 1 and 2, you know that I actually avoided the most popular games when it came to my game stacks. Week 1, we had the Chargers versus Miami. Last week, it was the Chiefs and Jaguars. And while I highlighted individual plays from that, I tried to avoid the most popular game stack overall. I'm not going to do that here for week 3. I want to go head first into this game between Minnesota and the Chargers, and I really believe there's a lot of ways that we can stack this up. Yes, there's going to be some really popular plays here in this game, but I think we can still approach it here. It's got an implied total of 54 points, highest on the main slate this week, and I think we can find some unique pieces here to make our lineups different. But my preferred game stack here is stacking up Cousins with his top 2 wide receivers and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and then running it back with Joshua Kelly and Mike Williams from the Chargers. Again, we could mix in a Keenan Allen here if we wanted to, Gerald Everett at the tight end position, or TJ Hawkinson as well, but this was my preferred route to go. You could even go with KJ Osborne, but the drops last week against Philadelphia were really concerning. I have no insight to this, but I have to assume that Jordan Addison is going to play more here this week after the poor performance from Osborne last week. Now again, highest implied total here on the main slate at 54 points. This Vikings defense hasn't been great to start the season, allowing 20 points to the Buccaneers, 34 points last week to the Eagles. Chargers defense hasn't been very good either, allowing 27 points to the Titans last week and 36 points to the Dolphins in week 1. You can see the defensive DVOA rankings right there. LAC ranks dead last right now, 32nd overall. Vikings rank 20th overall. Needless to say, neither one of these defenses have been very good to start the season. Now, being that we just highlighted the most popular game there for week 3, I want to get a little different with this second game stack, and I would consider this for larger field tournaments, not smaller field tournaments, single entry, things like that. I'm trying to take down $1 million with this type of lineup. So I'm going to be targeting this game here between the New Orleans Saints and the Green Bay Packers, and let me explain why. There's 2 big reasons as to why I like this stack. Now, for starters, let me break down the stack that I like here, and I think we could target this a number of different ways, but I like Derek Carr with 2 of his wide receivers, and Michael Thomas and Rashid Shaheed, and then running it back with Aaron Jones, assuming he's a go on Sunday, as well as Jaden Reed. Now, the first big reason that I like this particular stack here is because if we roll out those 5 players, that gives us an average remaining salary per player of $6,100, and we need to fill in a running back, flex, tight end, and a defense. You got quite a bit of money there. You take away that defense, now the average remaining salary is going to be in the $7K range. I've been able to build some really good looking lineups, assuming this game stack here is high scoring. So again, it's kind of a high risk, high reward, boom bust type of stack here that is really cheap for large field GPPs. And the second big reason I kind of like this game here is because I was looking at the first 2 weeks for both of these teams. They really haven't played anybody that significant. The Packers played Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears in week 1 and then had Desmond Ridder and the Atlanta Falcons in week 2, while the Saints faced Ryan Tannehill and the Titans in week 1, and then rookie quarterback Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers in week 2. So again, we're talking about 4 pretty mediocre offenses here that these defenses have had to face to start the season. So those are the 2 big reasons why I like this game stack here. Now I'm well aware this could be a low scoring game, a 20-17 type of finish, just based on where the implied total is today. But on the off chance this does go for 50 plus points, and we could be sitting really nice in our tournaments because nobody's targeting this game here in week 3. And again, we have so much money left over throughout the rest of our lineup to pay up for some high price studs. A boom bust type of lineup here trying to take down $1 million. We could be sitting really nice or could be sitting dead last. That's the type of approach I'm having here. Now folks, before we dive into these individual plays and stacks here, a few things I want to mention. For starters, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would truly appreciate that. It's free to like and subscribe, and it really does help me out. We're trying to get Slydog Sports here to 4,000 subs, so help us get there sooner than later. And I also want to mention here that I am running a Draftkings League and a Discord channel. Both of those are free to join, and you can do that by clicking the links in the description below. Alright, now let's dive into these individual plays and stacks here. We're going to kick it off with the quarterbacks like we always do. Go position by position here to wrap things up. I'm going to start here with Patrick Mahomes. Now, I did talk about him in my cash plays video yesterday. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you go do so. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. $8,300 is expensive, but this is a great matchup at home for him against the Chicago Bears. This Bears defense is just flat out not good, ranking 31st overall in yards per play allowed to quarterbacks, and they've also allowed the highest passer rating through the first 2 weeks of the season. No reason to think that Mahomes won't be able to shred this secondary. The next quarterback that I like here this week then is Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I know he hasn't had a blow-up game yet, but let's take a deep breath. It is only week 2, and we know the ceiling that this guy provides. At $7,700 here on DraftKings this week, we need about 31 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value. And just because he hasn't had a blow-up game yet doesn't mean that he isn't playing good ball. He actually ranks 8th overall in a passing grade for quarterbacks, 9th in yards per attempt, and 6th in big-time throw rate. So he's playing good ball right now. Again, he just hasn't had a 30-plus point game yet, but that could be this week here against the Indianapolis Colts, considering how much zone they run as a defense and how good Lamar is versus zone. You can see right there, India's run zone about roughly 80% of the time so far through 2 weeks, and Lamar has the 6th best passer grade versus zone. So again, this could be the blow-up week. And then the last quarterback that I got there then is Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. Now, I actually almost highlighted this game between the Lions and Falcons this week as a game stack, but went a little more off the board with Green Bay and the Saints, but I have no problem targeting this game either. It currently has an implied total of 46.5 points, the 4th most on the main slate, and it actually has gone up in Vegas. I believe it started at 45.5, now it's at 46.5, so people are generally betting the over. At $6,500 here, we need about 26 DraftKings points in order for Goff to meet 4x value. He did that just last week. We know he generally plays better at home as well. And if you look at this statistic here, this really caught my eye. The Lions have been home favorites 6 times since the beginning of 2022 or the start of last year. And in those 6 games, we've gotten point totals of 51, 54-57, 63-68, and 93. Needless to say, there's always some shootout potential playing indoors when you're in Detroit. Now, moving on to the running backs here, we're actually going to stick in this game between Detroit and Atlanta. Really like Bijan Robinson this week in that matchup against Detroit. Sitting at $7,800 on DraftKings right now. We need 31.2 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value. Really like to see his snap rate increase from week 1 to week 2. We saw that go from 63% to 72%, and he also had 24 total touches last week, and I really like his involvement in the passing game. Even though Atlanta doesn't throw the ball a bunch, he actually leads all running backs through 2 weeks with a 22% target share. For me, it's not a matter of if Bijan's going to get 30-plus points, it's when, and I truly think that could be this week. This guy is elite, even though he's a rookie running back. And speaking of rookie running backs, I also like Jahmyr Gibbs in this matchup as well. Sounds like David Montgomery is going to be doubtful for the Lions here in week 3. I don't want to say Gibbs is going to get 24 touches like Bijan did in week 2, but 15, maybe 20. I think that's got to be in the cards here this week. I know they're saying that Josh Reynolds is going to be involved. Yeah, he's probably going to get some looks, but Jahmyr Gibbs is the true talent here for Detroit in the backfield. We need 26.4 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value. He did see 9 targets in week 2. Really like to see that, especially if this game does turn into a shootout. And this Atlanta defense, not very good against running backs, ranking 22nd overall in explosive run rate allowed, and they also have the 10th worst stuff rate. And then I got Kenneth Walker there of the Seattle Seahawks, sitting in a good matchup at home this week against the Carolina Panthers, and I think this could be a game where Seattle gets out to a lead early on, and they kind of just run the ball out in the second half, especially considering that Andy Dalton's going to be starting for Carolina. Not that it really mattered if Bryce Young was going to be starting. At $6,200, we need 24.8 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value. And it has been a slow start here for Walker to start the season. I like to see him punch in 2 touchdowns last week against Detroit. Hoping Bijan can do that here this week. But I'd really just like the matchup here against this Panthers team. This Panthers defense hasn't been stellar against the run so far this year. They currently rank 4th overall in lowest stuff rate to running backs, and they've allowed the 26th most yards after contact per rushing attempt. All right, now let's talk some wide receivers here. Now, I do want to mention I highlighted a lot of value wide receivers in my cash plays video yesterday, so again, make sure you go check that out. I also highlighted this guy right here, Tyreek Hill. I'll keep this short and sweet. Look, we probably want to play Tyreek Hill more weeks than not when it comes to our tournament lineups. It doesn't matter if he's $9,000 or $6,700. Yeah, I don't think that's ever happened, but it goes to show you I will play Tyreek Hill no matter the price, no matter the matchup, especially if Jalen Waddle misses, and he is questionable heading into Sunday. Look at these statistics right here. Since joining Miami, Hill has run 95 pass routes with Jalen Waddle out of the lineup. In those 95 pass routes, he's seen a 43% target share and 4.4 yards per route run. Just to put some context there, everyone, that means every single route he runs, he's gaining 4.4 yards as a fantasy football statistic. That's absolutely absurd. I then got Amari Cooper here of the Cleveland Browns. Really good matchup at home this week for the Browns in general. If Deshaun Watson doesn't perform against this Tennessee Titans secondary, Cleveland, you got some issues there with your quarterback for sure. At $5,700 here, we need essentially 23 Draftkings points in order for Amari to meet 4x value. He's the clear first read option in this Browns offense right now, leading the team with about a 30.5% target share. And again, this Titans secondary was horrible in 2022, haven't looked very good here in 2023. In fact, they actually allowed the most fantasy points per game to wide receivers last year and have allowed the 5th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers this year. It's a great matchup to say the least. It really just comes down to whether or not Deshaun Watson performs. Now, I mentioned Lamar Jackson as a quarterback play here for week 3, and I absolutely think we could stack him up with his top tight end in Mark Andrews and really the number 1 pass catcher in this offense. I'm not talking about Mark Andrews in this video here today, so I guess I'm name dropping him now, but I also really like Zay Flowers at $5,400. We need about 21.5 Draftkings points in order for him to meet 4x value, and while his target share did come down a little bit in week 2 with Mark Andrews coming back, this is still a guy who's seen roughly a 27% target share and 22% of the team's air yards. But what I really like here through 2 weeks is him leading the team in yards per route run versus zone. And again, I mentioned this earlier, this Colts defense has run zone about 80% of the time to start the season. And then as a value wide receiver play here this week, I like Josh Reynolds of the Detroit Lions, who's running hot through the first 2 weeks. I honestly thought he was going to be priced in the upper 4K range, low 5K range based off of his performances so far this year. So I'll absolutely take advantage of this $4,200 price tag, where we need about 17 Draftkings points in order for him to meet 4x value. Look at some of these numbers so far this year. 17% target share, almost 32% of the team's air yards. He also ranks 9th overall in receiving grade and 14th overall in yards per route run. That's across the entire NFL. Not bad at all for a guy priced at $4,200. So yeah, again, a value play here, but we could stack him up with Jared Goff and again, really just target this game between the Lions and Atlanta. And then I got a couple of tight ends that I'm going to talk about here today. I did talk about some value tight ends in my cash plays video yesterday. We got guys like Hunter Henry, Durham Smythe sitting really nice at $2,900, Zach Ertz, Sam Laporta. Definitely some value on this slate, but I want to talk about some higher priced tight ends here for tournaments and GPPs. First being Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, that Kansas City Chiefs offense is really kind of hard to determine which wide receiver is going to have a big game week in and week out. But the one thing we don't have to question is Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes' chemistry. So we could just do a single stack with those two if we wanted to in a great matchup against Chicago. Last week we saw Kelce return from injury, played 64% of the snaps. Expect that to go up here this week. He saw 22% target share, but more importantly, he saw 36% target share per route run. That's really what matters here, especially considering his snap share is expected to go up this week. But again, this is really just a good matchup overall for the Chiefs at home home against Chicago, and the connection between Mahomes and Kelsey is never really in question. And then as a mid-price tight end this week, I like Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I've talked about his teammate Travis Etienne quite a bit here this week. I really do like him as well, but at $4,800, we'd only need 19.2 DraftKings points in order for Ingram to meet 4x value. He's very capable of doing that. This is a guy who's seen about a 17.5% target share through 2 weeks and 21% of the first team reads, so I do like to see those numbers. He also has the third best receiving grade for tight ends, and again, pretty solid matchup at home against Houston. I think this Jags team really could go off this week, and maybe even a game we could target in general, as CJ Stroud hasn't looked bad himself through his first 2 weeks as a rookie. And then to wrap up the positional plays here, we're going to talk some defenses. We'll go through these pretty quickly here. I got 2 on my radar here, but defenses is one of those crapshoots. It seems to be week in and week out, but 2 that I think have some nice upside this week are the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets. Cleveland at home here against the Tennessee Titans need 13.2 DraftKings points in order for them to meet 4x value at their price tag of $3,300. Now, I like this matchup against Tennessee largely due to their quarterback Ryan Tannehill, who has 3 interceptions and has taken 8 sacks through 2 games this season, and the Browns have the 6th best pressure rate through 2 weeks as well and should be able to get after this quarterback. And then as a cheaper defense this week, I like the New York Jets. I actually think they're too cheap here at $2,800 considering how much talent they have on the back end. Back at home here against the New England Patriots, and I'm not really afraid of Mac Jones, a guy who's already taken 6 sacks this year and thrown 2 interceptions. At $2,800, we need about 11.2 DraftKings points in order for this defense to hit 4x value. We saw them get 20 DraftKings points back in week 1 against the Buffalo Bills, albeit they did finish with a walk-off punt return TD. There's definitely some nice upside here. Alright everyone, that's going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, folks. Let's win some money on this week 3 main slate. In the meantime, I'm out of here.